Good evening. Well, we are officially into the evening. So, welcome to the second talk in the tech track this evening. So, we are now going to be joined by the wonderful Augustina Ajay, who'll be talking about the Internet of Things and digital health in developing nations. So, Augustina, can you see me? I hope you can, and I'm going to bring you up on stage. If you press present on, Augustina, you will join me on stage right now. Let's see, we'll just give it a few moments. And then we should be able to see. There we go. Oh, we can find you. Don't worry, Augustina, I can see you. I can see you. So can you see the presentation now, Augustina? Are you watching the presentation? Okay, so give me 1 second. It's good that you can see me. Don't worry, I can help from here. Okay, don't worry, I can help. One moment, everyone. We'll bring Augustina onto the stage. Just going to bring Augustina on. Hopefully you've received my message, Augustina. I've sent you something so we can bring you onto the screen. Okay. Okay. What we're going to do, everyone, I've always got a workaround or a hack, I tell you, in this digital land, is Yasmine. Are you ready to come on stage and speak at the moment? Yasmine. If you are, please press present on and come onto the screen, and then I'm going to help Augustina with her control panel. Yasmine, can you hear me? I hope if you can hear me, please do pop something into the chat for me. Okay? Pop something into the chat for me because it seems like you may not be able to hear me. Ah, Yasmine, there you are. I can see you. Okay, right. Brilliant. Yasmine can hear me and she can see me. So that's brilliant. So Yasmine, please press present on. If you can, brilliant. Lovely. All right. So you're sharing your screen already, Yasmine. So that's why we can all see your screen with me on it in multiples, which is hilarious. There you are.
Hi.
Okay. Hi, Yasmine. Welcome to the stage. So Yasmine's going to just swap it around, which is what you have to do in the digital world. We are going to be talking about giving people freedom through technology. So Yasmine, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're going to talk about this fourth revolution and how it's already begun because we're no longer tied to cities or workplaces. It's the start of de-urbanization and the rise of the digital. So take it away.
Thank you so much. This is great. All right. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Yes. All right. Always some fun technical stuff, right? Perfect. All right. So I think I'm going to have to just do this. And I can't see any of your comments, though. I can only see my screen, but we'll go for that. Perfect. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I am going to talk a little bit about giving people freedom through And this is me in 2017 in Cape Town, South Africa. At this point, I had spent 3 years on the road working remotely. And I want to go back to 2014 when my journey began. I was living in London at the time, and I ran a small business. One day, a really good friend of mine calls me up and she says, I really want to go to Buenos Aires. Do you want to come with me? And I was very intrigued. I love traveling, discovering new places and new cultures. But the fact was that my business that I was running at the time wasn't exactly remote. But I thought maybe I can arrange this. So I did. I organized and off we went all the way to Buenos Aires. And one day I was sitting on our balcony and I was looking out across the skyline in Buenos Aires. And it was wonderful. It was November. It's obviously getting cold in London. And I was just having the best time. And I couldn't kind of help myself of feeling a little bit smug. You know, there I was sitting, working remotely and having a great, great time. And a few days later, I was on Instagram and I came across the hashtag digital nomad. And I was immediately very intrigued by this. And I started to, go deeper and deeper, look at all these images and people. And I realized that what I thought was very clever, actually a lot of people doing the same thing. And at that moment, I decided that I was to live a similar life that was me. So for 3 years, I spent time. I was in Europe. I was in Europe. Many. One of them is that I consult companies and governments on. I'm also a Harvard graduate, and I'm currently writing on the future workspace. But today is not going to be so much about me. It's going to be more about you. I know that a lot in technology or you have your own businesses, so you have a really good possibility to find your work freedom, whatever that means to you. And I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about kind of the story of digital nomad, advancement in technology, the fourth industrial revolution, and where we are right now. And then I'm going to give you some steps and tips on how you can find your work freedom. And again, if you're making some comments, I can't see, I just see my screen, but I'll go over it. So going back throughout history, nomad is not something new. We have seen nomadic people in most cultures around the world. And there has been people who've been living nomadic because they've been traders or hunters or consultants. And normally people would move from one space to another and, keep moving, or people would just swap between seasons, one place to another. But the expression digital nomad came in 1997 when this book was published by Mr. Makimoto and Mr. Manners. However, this man here, Steve K. Roberts, is said to be the very, very first digital nomad. So Steve was living in Ohio in the suburbs, and he wasn't quite happy with his life. He didn't feel fulfilled. He felt that he wanted to travel and experience new things, but he didn't want to give up the security of his job. So he decided to build this bike called the Vinio Biko, and he spent about a few years traveling around the US on this bike, and it went so well because he could work remotely and live in this way that he kept building different bikes, and eventually he actually also went abroad. If you're really interested, you can find the bike at the Silicon Valley Computer Museum. This is his third bike. Today, I'm sure that many of you have seen and heard about digital nomads in the news. It very much went from niche to normal. And media loves to portray digital nomads in this way. Someone working on a beach in a hammock. And of course, there is some truth in this. But the reality is that digital nomad works in many different ways. Just myself, right now, I am living in a little house upstate New York, close to the Canadian border. There's not many people around, but I was traveling. So there's just many different ways you can live as a digital nomad. And this brings me on to the next topic, and that is the fourth industrial revolution. And why is it that digital nomad why do we see so many people living this lifestyle? Obviously before COVID, which I will come to shortly. But why is it that we see that? Well, it's because of advancement in technology and digitalization. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the fourth industrial revolution. I'm sure some of you are, some of you might not have heard of it. But if you remember from school, we were taught about the first industrial revolution, which was the invention of steam and urbanization and so on. We are now entering the fourth, which is characterized by digitalization and rapid advancement in technology. And I wanted to show you a very short 30-second clip from the World Economic Forum. They are doing a lot of interesting research on the fourth industrial revolution, but I just wanted to show it to you to see kind of what the next couple of years are going to look like.
In the next few years, I expect the digital transformation of life to bring huge changes. Everything from science to healthcare to sensors to robotics.
Whether it's information technology and the acceleration we see in artificial intelligence, you just look across the board, a lot is happening.
It's really the notion of digital technology pervasively impacting every walk of life in every vertical industry on all parts of the globe.
I hope you... I'm going to stop there for a second to make sure that you are all... Okay, perfect. I was thinking I was just, in the blind here. Okay, perfect. I will keep going. Great. So one of the interesting things that has happened through this that I wanted to point out is internet connection speed. So when you look at this graph, you might think that if you don't look at the numbers, you might think that this is from 1983 when Steve was on his bike. But this is actually from 2007, which to me doesn't feel that far away. Maybe I'm getting old. But it's really interesting to see how this have developed. And just the end of 2016 and 2017, it's just been a rapid increase in connection and speed. And I know this graph is from the US, but this can also be applied to many other countries. And some emerging economies have even more interesting graphs where you can see that they kind of go like this and then they go straight up. Another interesting part is that you can see that technology adoption rates are increasing. So before, a while ago, you could see that electricity took about 50 years to adopt, and now smartphones only take a few years to adopt. And this leads me into remote working. So I wanted to point out that before COVID-19, there was a huge increase in remote working. So this was already something that was very much happening because of our advancements in technology. And some people would even argue that the 159% is a lot higher. And as we all know, COVID-19 has made a lot of us work remotely. It has also accelerated the fourth industrial revolution. 2020 has certainly been a very challenging year for the world. And some people argue that it's the end of globalization, and we've seen politically a lot of close and bad news. I hoping that technology will create a more open and global world. And I wanted to show you some of the things that has happened in 2020 that could create a more open world and also could give us more opportunities to find our work freedom. So firstly, this is a question that a lot of people have been asking. Is the office dead? Well, I don't think so, but we've seen in the news, Slack, Twitter, and I think Microsoft now as well, said that no one has to ever go back to the office. However, what I think is going to happen is that there's going to be more hybrid work. So there's going to be a combination of where you can go and you can work from home or you can go to your office. And offices are going to be transformed into these kind of innovation hubs. And what's interesting, they've done a lot of surveys throughout COVID, which shows that what people really want is to kind of create this hybrid work. They don't necessarily only want to work from home or from whenever, or only want to work in the office. They want to have the possibility of the two. Another thing that we are seeing is regulators around the world are catching up. For example, in the US, people have been moving across different states, which are a lot of questions around tax. The same goes for Europe. I have been working on these questions for many years, and it's been a bit of a gray zone. And finally, regulators are realizing that they quickly need to find new solutions and adopt to the new way we are working. And I actually added this slide this morning because there was, on my LinkedIn feed, this UK startup called Omnipresent popped up. And what they do is that they help any business to employ people from anywhere. They make it easy. And I think that is really fantastic. And I'm hoping that that can give companies access to more global talent. Another thing that's happened in 2020 is the rise of the work visas, or the digital nomad work visas. So this is also not something entirely new. For example, Estonia and Thailand has done this for a long time, but there's been many countries this year that has announced. For example, you have Barbados, that you now can come and work 1-2 years from these countries, and then it's as long as you have a business or you're freelancing or you have an employment somewhere else. I also know that Croatia is announcing in 2021 their own digital nomad visa. So we're coming to an end of this presentation, but I really wanted to give you a few tips and steps on how you can find your work freedom and live a more free life where you can fulfill your dreams. So the very first step is to define it, because work freedom means many, many different things to different people. Like I mentioned when we had the guy in the hammock, this digital nomad comes in many different forms. Is it that you are actually dreaming of living a more nomadic life? I know that things are maybe not so looking so nomadic right now, but maybe next year when things are starting to hopefully get back to normal. Maybe that's your dream, to be able to travel and explore and meet these new people. Or maybe it's that you want to be more adventurous, have closeness to nature. Or live in the countryside in a big house and have also access to nature. Or maybe you really enjoyed how things has been right now. You enjoyed working from home, and the ability to have a hybrid office or co-working space is exactly what you want to do. Whatever it is, it's important to kind of define what that is for you. And also remember that these things can change. Like I have personally kind of lived through all these 4 different ways. Like I said, I'm now in the middle of nowhere and I'm loving it. I was traveling all around and I loved it. I was in a city and I loved it. So it's just about finding the way that works for you. Second step is to look over your work. So if you're currently employed right now, that's great. You have most likely been working remotely. And that's a way for you to showcase your employer that how well it has been working. And maybe you could say, hey, next year, you know, maybe in the end of the summer, I would love to take the opportunity to spend a month in Croatia, or maybe you want to go and live in the countryside, or whatever it is. You can really build a case. If you're a freelancer or you have your own business, it's also a perfect opportunity to kind of plan for the future and kind of start it to like save up or whatever you need to do to make your work freedom. Step 3 is to find inspiration. This is my favorite step. And it's just to go out there and embrace all the information there is around the remote working and digital nomads. First of all, there are many, many books that you can read. These are 3 of some of the very famous books. The middle one, The 4-Hour Work Week, is almost become like a holy book for digital nomads. And it certainly is a bit cheesy, and reading it, I took a lot of things with a pinch of salt, but they are good. They kind of show how to live a simple life and how to be more effective and how to fulfill your dreams and live your best life. Second is Facebook groups. I don't know about you, but I don't use Facebook very much, but I use Facebook groups a lot. And there are hundreds of thousands probably of digital nomad groups. There are very large ones like this one, but then there's also specific ones for if it's some technology, like digital nomads in tech, or it could be digital nomad, female digital nomads. There are digital nomads in Croatia. Let's say that you do want to go there, then you can already join these groups and already start networking, asking for different, whatever you're interested in. It's just a great resource. And my favorite one to gather inspiration is to have informal interviews. And what I mean by that is that normally I would ask someone to have a coffee or a cup of tea with me. Of course, now that hasn't been possible for me. However, what I find is that people have been extremely open-minded to meet me online throughout COVID, especially women around the world, has really taken the time to speak with me if there is anything. So I've been reaching out on LinkedIn to people I find inspiring and just simply ask them, hey, do you have time for a quick digital coffee, 20 minutes? I'm really inspired by your work. I would love to hear more. And you'd be surprised. People are incredible, and I've got so many opportunities by doing this. And if there's anything I can help you with, I am more than happy to have calls and chats with you. I will share my details in the end. And step 4 is to, of course, plan it. And a very good resource is called Nomad List. And what Nomad List does is that it you can put in factors that are important to you. So let's say that you are based in London, so you don't want to be too far away from that time zone. It's really important that you have a very good Wi-Fi connection, and it's important that it's not too expensive. So then you can put that in, and you can basically look at locations that would be good for you. And again, of course, we are in COVID-19, but this is the planning step. So, you can get an idea on how much money you need, etc., and what you need to do to enable to have your work freedom. And the last step, normally I've given similar presentations before. And what I normally say to people is to kind of just go out and try it out. I would say, take a weekend or a week somewhere that's not maybe too far away or whatever it is you want to do, and just test it out. Of course, again, things are a little bit different and not quite normal right now, but you can plan to do it. And I wanted to share a quote from one of my favorite books, The Alchemist, that very much has to do about finding your work freedom and also living your dream. So it's the possibility of having a dream that makes life interesting. Thank you so much. I would love to connect with you outside. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them now, or happy to have a chat with you at any point.
Thank you, Yasmine. Thank you so much. So, guys, everybody, to you all, we do not have much more time. So we are going to switch over into the restructure and sustainability room. Okay, so we're going to switch over to the restructure and sustainability room now. Okay, so I'm going to close this presentation so you can make the switch to the restructure and sustainability room. Thank you.